Denmark consistently ranks as the world's happiest or second happiest country. And there's a lot to love, from low inequality to a robust welfare state, job security, a strong sense of social trust. But yet, in Denmark, antidepressant use is rampant, divorce rates are sky high, and even suicide is not that uncommon, relatively speaking. So what's the story here? In this video, I'll try to square off these two positions of happiest country in the world with all these other things and give you a nuanced take. Hi, I am Mario, and on this channel I help people living in Denmark to live a happy, fun and rich life. My opinion here: these happiness rankings are shaky at best. We cannot scientifically measure happiness and make cross-cultural comparisons. There's really no hard data. Still, we can go through some of the reasons why Denmark is still considered happy as it is, and then go into the flip side. Number one is the welfare state. In Denmark, everyone is taken care of. You have universal healthcare, where all residents have access to free healthcare services, including preventive care, specialist treatments, mental health services. And the key thing here is that removes the financial barriers to healthcare, and it means that even if you're not well off, you know that if things go bad, you'll be taken care of, which is a big deal. You also have access to free education from primary school through to university, ensuring equal access to quality education, fostering social mobility, and you add to this a whole lot more benefits, including generous unemployment and disability benefits, subsidized parental leave and childcare. Pensioners are well taken care of as well. So this is an expensive setup to have. So the welfare state is expensive and it's by no means perfect, but it's a fair try. In a way, again, the key thing is that nobody in Denmark will be left behind. That's kind of the key premise here. The second point is that Denmark is a high income society. People earn really well here, relatively speaking, right? So there's a lot, of course, of very rich people, or there are some very rich people, but the key here is that the medium income, so the average person in the street, has a high income compared to the rest of the world, and in a context of low inequality, where the rich are not as rich as, like, the amount of times they're richer than the poorest part of the population is definitely not as big as in other places. Putting this into practice, it means that almost everyone in Denmark, normal people doing normal jobs, will have money to have a home. So there's a high level of home ownership. People can spend their time buying nice things. They can go to holidays abroad. And again, these are not things that are only for the well-off, like in some countries, but here they're basically almost for everyone. It's my own belief that Denmark and Scandinavia are the best places in the world to be on the bottom 25%, 30% of the population in terms of income. So you will not live a lavish lifestyle, obviously, but you will not struggle to make ends meet, or you will not be day-to-day close to bankruptcy, as, for example, the bottom 25% in a richer country like would be the United States would be. So something to keep in mind. And the third point I want to highlight on happiness is a work-life balance. So employees in Denmark, if you work in a company or in the state for that matter, you have a ton of free time, relatively speaking. So you have 37 hours, that's the usual or the normal work week here. You have 25 days of paid holidays as a minimum. You have generous parental leave, as I said. And you also have these very flexible work hours, so very flexible work setup. And the key thing here is that this was the case before COVID as well, and it's cultural. So the Danish way emphasizes time with family, time with kids, time for sports and other leisure activities as well. And for example, myself, I really treasure this because, let's be honest, the reason I can run this YouTube channel while I work in Maersk, while I have 2 kids, while I travel to 130 different countries as a hobby, it's because of this work-life balance. I don't have to work 80 hours a week to keep my job. Hence, I have opportunity for this. And I don't think this type of setup would work in a ton of different countries. Maybe, but I don't know. I value this and I really treasure it. But now, let's look at the flip side. Why then Denmark has so many problems with, like, for example, antidepressants? And that would be, number one, the coldness. It's cold here in Denmark. Danish winters are dark, they're long, and they're cold. Mind, it doesn't get as cold as it would be, for example, in Eastern Europe or in North America, in terms of like the days that it gets really cold. In North America, it gets really cold. But here it's just cold enough for a big and long stretch of time. So we're talking about from October to April, it can be cold. You need to be wearing jackets, scarves, gloves, and so on. There's some kind of social adaptations to this. You have hygge, for instance. There's gonna be some video over here where I talk about hygge, but the key here is that this coldness transmits into the society in one way or the other. So for example, Danish people, you could consider them as cold. Again, relatively speaking. To make friends in Denmark, it's not that it's impossible, but you need to put a lot more effort here than you would do in other places, especially if you're an expat. Again, we're social animals, and if we like it or not, this kind of cold weather and social life that's a bit harder, kind of sucks sometimes. And if you look at the expat surveys in Denmark, it has come up that Denmark is the second most unfriendly country after Kuwait around the world. Well, that's what the people say. So for more on that, check this video over here. Layer to this, that there's this darkness in winter, that you don't really see the sun. I mean, that makes something on your brain. There's vitamin D deficiency. Because of this and all these other things, people, even though they say they're so happy, if you look at the numbers, there's really high number of antidepressants and divorces and so on. Number 2 point is the Janteloven. And the Janteloven are this informal social code that implies that in Denmark can't and shouldn't stand out. That there are a lot of, let's say, cultural and actually even laws and regulations as carrots and stick to support this setup. Again, for 8 or even 9 out of 10 people, this is not a problem. This is not something to be sad or unhappy about. But if you're the last, 1 person or 2 people out of 10 that they're highly ambitious, that you want to, make a name for yourself and you want to, get like very ambitious in the material world or things like that, it's going to be really hard to do it here. And you might be unhappy and it might push you to emigrate. Again, also taxes will be really unbearably high for this type of people, these high earning, high ambitious types. Again, well, the majority of people will be fine with this. For the last few, this leads to depression, alcoholism and the like. And alcoholism, yeah, it's a big problem here in Northern Europe. Again, Denmark, the setup is absolutely not optimized for people like that are highly ambitious. And there's more on that on the video that's going to be linked over here. What is the conclusion? It depends. You can make Denmark the happiest place for you, but it will demand effort. And again, some holidays away from Denmark in winter, that's for sure.